I would like to welcome our lecturer today. That's our fellow Rotarian from Rotary Club Vienna Albertina, Primarius Dr. Volc. Guten Abend und herzlich willkommen.
Dobro večer und vielen Dank. I will present the lecture in English, and I'm very glad to know you all and especially Lamia, with whom I worked together since about 20 years, I suppose, and she made it possible that I could do my presentation tonight for you. Some words about my person. I'm a neurologist situated in Vienna. I'm doing Parkinson's disease more or less exclusively since 1990. So there's some experience about this disease. We did a lot of basic studies, basic clinical studies. We made the first vaccination against Parkinson's disease from 2012 on. But we're still in phase 1 and then phase 2, and nowadays with all the COVID stuff, vaccination focus goes elsewhere and not to Parkinson's disease. So unfortunately, this is on hold at the moment. But the whole group has a big knowledge about the technological approach to diseases. We started to make projects with the technical university and another technical school in Wiener Neustadt to create new tools, because despite the fact that we are going to have some treatments like vaccination in the very early phases, just to not having an outbreak of Parkinson's disease, we still have about 6.5 million people throughout the world who need treatment. And all the treatments we have go back to the 60s. So the main treatment is levodopa, and this was introduced into the market in 1967. And it's still the gold standard of therapy. There are new therapies, but not too much new things which really change the picture here. So I think we are going to implement some microelectronical devices to help those people, and this is the idea of going into these technical things. So when COVID came, we were working on telemedicine since a year, mostly because I wanted to spend the cold winter month in South Africa playing golf and still having contact with my patients. That was the idea behind. And now COVID made it possible that we could implement all those tele things in a very short time, because everybody became interested in it. If you see me and not only the presentation, please forgive me that I'm looking to the other screen, because the presentation is a little bit to my left.
No problem.
The theme.
Can I just mention
yes, sure.
For the people that are maybe first time with us, technicalities during this presentation. We will just want to ask to mute your microphone, so it would be so we can only hear our lecturer, and then we will be able to ask questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you, Daria. So the theme of tonight is the telemedicine in the movement disorders practice. It's not only Parkinson's disease, it's movement disorders in the whole field. Just a few words about Parkinson's disease for those of you who are not familiar with the disease. It's always mixed up with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's are the people who forget to pay in the restaurant, and Parkinson people are the ones who spill the wine. So it's the thing with the tremor. But tremor is not the main and leading symptom. James Parkinson described this disease, not under his name, of course, in the year 1817. He was a practitioner in London, and he described 4 cardinal symptoms. That is the hypo and bradykinesia, which means loss of movements and very slow movements. Then the tremor, then the rigidity, which is a stiffness of the muscles, and the postural instability, which is not dizziness or vertigo. This is a kind of instability while standing or walking. So this didn't change too much up to our days, but the United Kingdom Parkinson's Disease Society Brain Bank criteria of diagnosis we use nowadays is the same hypo and bradykinesia, which has to be the main symptom. And this is added by tremor and or rigidity. And the postural instability, we found out in years that it is not a very early symptom. It comes later on, so it's not in the main cardinal symptoms anymore. It's hypo and bradykinesia plus minus tremor and rigidity. And you can see it very nicely here in the picture, which is also over 150 years old, from Charcot, a French neurologist, who really made it possible to line out with a few dots this asymmetry. You see here that this down and this one is more rigid and it's higher up. You see this face without expression, the bended knees and the bended back. So these are very typical pictures. A video cannot be much better than that. In the middle, you see a brain scan, a dot spec, where you can monitor the activity of the brain. And in a normal brain, which is the 2 upper parts, you see a comma-like shape of these red dots. And you see here that these red dots are missing. And this is a typical sign of Parkinson's disease. I don't know if it works out with the videos and the transmission via the system, but let's try. This would be a patient without medication with a very severe Parkinson syndrome, with a very heavy tremor, not able to move or to speak. This is the same person 1 day later with a special therapy. If you look exactly, you can see that he has a little bump around his neck, and this is a bump which gives him some medication subcutaneously, just to demonstrate how big a difference between non-therapy and therapy is. So now I come to the main theme with the telemedicine. What does telemedicine mean at all? You can divide it into different parts. There's the part with the physician who meets the patient and the caregiver, like we do it in the office. And in days like today, when we have more or less lockdown and should not go to the office, and the patients and their caregivers leave their house and visit us, this is a very convenient way to still stay in touch with the patients. That's telepractice. But we also tend nowadays in the new generation to collaborate with other physicians, let's say the general practitioner or the neurologist on place in a smaller town who is not a specialist in Parkinson's disease can call me or my colleague, and we do a teleconsulting together about the patient. Also possible, what we now is that the patient is in the office of the general practitioner and we make an appointment to see him, let's say, together. The new things, these are the things we are very much interested in, is the telemetry, a measurement of some parameters, and I'll show you a few examples at home, which is sent to a dashboard, which I can see on my screen immediately, seconds after the patient collected the data. The same is telemonitoring. Telemonitoring is the same thing over a period of time, like some of you know, but ECG monitoring or blood pressure monitoring. And finally, we founded already in 1995 Society of Telemedicine together with my neurosurgeon. And this was a little bit too early because the technical equipment was not there, but now we have the technical equipment, and what we do is we have a Neurocast, a webinar every Wednesday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, where patients and doctors are invited to join. And this runs since 7 months now, and that was really a hit. So teleconsultants, what do you need? The easiest way, and what we do since a long time, is using the telephone to call a patient, or the patient calls in and we talk about the complaints and give some advice. The messenger services would be nice, but they are not sufficiently secure because they are not peer-to-peer. This is meanwhile possible with Zoom. In the beginning of this year, if you remember, there was a lot of stories going on that Zoom is not secure, and many big companies do not allow to use Zoom. But what we now do, the Microsoft stuff, Zoom is a little bit more convenient for patients because you only send the link and they can join in. This I use very much for my foreign patients. Today I had a call with the patient in Bucharest, the translator in the 19th district of Vienna, and myself sitting in the 8th district. We also had a Russian patient in Moscow. The son is living on Cyprus, and the translator is somewhere else in Russia. So this is quite fine with the 3 or 4 screens, and we can talk together. You can also do the investigations for movement disorders, because there's only 2 things for which I really would need to touch the patient. The one is the test of the rigidity, the passive movements, and the other one would be the equilibrium. But all the other parameters we need, it's not necessary to touch the patient. We can do it just by watching. And what we officially use, and what we use with the Austrian patients, is implemented system in our practice software Latido, which is a peer-to-peer connection. So we make a connection via a server to the patient, and the patient back over the server to us, and then we are this system lets us free, and we are connected peer-to-peer, only the patient and the doctor. This is very safe and with all those data things, secure system. The only thing you require is a laptop or a computer with a camera. Most of the people have that, and an internet access. It's also possible to do it just via the smartphone. And practically, the patient makes an appointment like for an appointment in the office, and my assistants make the sharing and pairing of the computers before the meeting, and at the meeting they only dial in and I take the call. It's like picking up the telephone. You can do everything, as I pointed out. You can, of course, ask for the history. You can do a neurological exam and the whole medical consultation. And the very convenient thing is that we, out of the program, can send the letters and the prescriptions directly to the patients, but the prescriptions also directly to the pharmacy, so that the people can go directly to the pharmacy and pick up the drugs. This is a screenshot. This is how it looks like. You have the basic information about the patient. You have the history, and you see the screen here where you can talk to the patient. And for self-control, you have the little picture of yourself down there. Little bit of statistics. You know, doctors like statistics. This was the experience we had this year. It was a very normal January 2 foreign patients whom we had in teleconsultation. The same is true in February. And then in the middle of March, we had the first lockdown until from the 17th of March to the 18th of May. And this is the beginning of March. I still saw some patients. Then we rolled out the telemedicine system, and it arose in April. And the interesting thing is, although we went back into the office, the numbers are quite stable, and it is the same in October and November. It's now increasing because we have a lockdown again. So people are going to take this and to accept this. And you know, Parkinson's disease is not really a child's disease. Most of the people are 65 plus, but that's nowadays a generation which is digitalized during their professional work. So many of those people are familiar with computers. But still, the first patient who implemented the system was 81 years old and female. So you would not expect that this is the right target population, but still that was the case. The next thing is telemetry, and I'm very fond of that and very proud of that. You see this pen-like system called TremiPen, which is measuring the tremor. And we use this since 4 or 5 years to measure in the office. But now they invented a home version. The patient has this pen at home, and it is transmitting the frequency and the amplitude of the tremor to a smartphone, and the smartphone sends the data to me so that I can control the tremor at home. The other thing is that many of our smartphones and other devices like Fitbit or Apple Watch have sensors built in, and you have from ECG to movement data a lot of information which you can use for telemetry, which we also do. And the second system we use is Encephalog. Encephalog is based just on an iPhone. Imagine you have a system to measure a lot of parameters, and you get a lot of information. All the devices you can buy nowadays use 5 to 7 sensors. You have to put them onto your arms, onto your ankles, on your belt, on your chest. And if you are able to place all those sensors, you probably will not need them. If you need those sensors, you probably will not be able to place them there. So you always need a helping person. Encephalog is the system of a small startup in Tel Aviv, and they tracked it down and put everything into an iPhone. So they use own iPhone or smart. No, not iPhone. That's wrong. They used the Androids, and in the Androids you have a lot of sensors built in, and only the standard sensors are used, and you can measure most of the parameters we need for movement disorders. You have the tapping, which is to tap with one finger to 2 points. You can measure the resting and the position tremor. There is something we use a lot, the timed up and go test. Show it in a minute. And the balance is only possible if you have a person at home and you get some figures out of there. This is in German because it's the German screenshots of the smartphone. On the left-hand side, you get let's say a playlist, like you have a playlist for music in Spotify or whatever. And this playlist is sent from me to the patient onto his or her smartphone, and they get a reminder every day at the same time to perform their tasks. And you have the resting tremor here, putting the hand on the desk and just holding the phone, the same standing position, holding it in front, and you get those curves of the tremor, you have 8 hertz, eight shakes in a second with not very high energy. You have the other one here with about 5 hertz, 5 shakes per second with a very high energy. This is a typical Parkinsonian tremor. And then you have the tapping. On the screen appear 2 blue dots, and you have to point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this for 10 seconds. And then it counts the taps, the accuracy with which they hit in the middle, and with the different colors, also the pressure, so to say, how deep it goes onto the phone. So this is more than we can see if we just watch the patient. And this is this mentioned timed up and go test. The patient sits on a chair, walks on a command for 3 meters, turns around, sits back. You can count the steps, you can count the time, you can count the stops, and in this case, the phone does it all. So this telemonitoring thing is a very, very good set of parameters which helps us a lot. And as soon as this test is finished, I can see it on the screen and I can watch it anytime and give my advice to that. Can do it every day or once a month or whatever is necessary. So what I wanted to show you is that we have a big deal of new possibilities and advantages with this telemedicine thing. The old family doctor is back, so to say. We can go into the people's houses and visit them there. They themselves do not need transportation. The children, mostly accompanying them, do not have to leave work, and it requires less time. So this is really an advantage for the people. And with the telemedicine thing, we can also do a very short in-between control of, let's say, 5 minutes or so, just to see how the tremor after a change of medication has changed. And we have this telemetry and telemonitoring systems new now. It's prescription to the pharmacy, I already mentioned, that is convenient as well. The last point is the Neurocast program, the teleinformation system we implemented now. There's a lot going on all over the world, and we do it meanwhile for the whole German-speaking region because it's in German, in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. And these are the next tasks. The day after tomorrow, I'm talking about the advanced stages of Parkinson's disease, and then we have new approach to therapy, the Parkinson complex therapy from a German colleague, Barbara Steiger from Zwickau. And in the next year, it will go on the same. So we really have a good program over the next half year already. And if you are able to speak German and you want to have a look, it's www.gtmed, Gesellschaft für Telemedizin.com. Don't forget the /IU. If you go onto this homepage, you can also see every narrowcast we already had, and also there's a second part. This is Paincast, and it's all documented there, and you can re-see it. So if you're capable of German and you want to have a look, or you have somebody who would be interested, just tell them to join in there. So I hope that was informative and you enjoyed that little speech. And if you have some questions, I'm ready to take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Volc. It's very nice to see how technology can change everything. For example, we as an online Rotary Club, it also enabled us to be Rotarians because we have online meetings, but also technology can improve our health in many ways. And what I find fascinating is that actually these measurements or tools bring you more than just maybe seeing a patient and just looking at it. So there are definitely some modern ways how to measure things. This is the part that I find the most exciting.
Yes,
so,
me too. This is really the big advantage we have now with the systems.
And especially because of Corona, so this topic is very, yes, it will be perhaps in the future also with the generations that are very close to technology, it will definitely increase in use, I could say. So we have one hand. Sinisha has a question.
Hello, Dr. Volc. Thank you very much for your very interesting talk. I'm very interested in telemedicine. Can you tell me some details how the Austrian Krankenkasse, the health insurance fund, covers the cost for this, or is it full private only?
Sinesha, you won't. It's almost unfeasible. 3 years ago, I called those authorities and I said, listen, guys, that's impossible. We are on the telephone for 2 to 3 hours every day. It's impossible to do this any longer. We have to get a refund for that. No, that's completely impossible, and this is not. I said, lawyers do that, accountants do that. Why is that? No, that's not possible. It's only the in-person visit in the office. Okay. Corona came on Friday. They sent out sometime in April. They sent out, okay, you are going to have a billing position in the Krankenkasse thing on Friday. On Monday, it was implemented in the system. And after 3 or 4 weeks, we received an email saying, this is very convenient. We are not going to stop this after Corona. And we still have it. We have a position where you can bill the patient and they get refund from the Krankenkasse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Corona has some good sides to it too, also.
I agree.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm sorry, I can't seem to raise a hand. I also have a question, if I'm not interrupting.
Of course, please.
Okay, so good evening. First of all, thank you for an amazing lecture, and thank you to the Rotary Club for organizing it. My name is Anna, and I'm a medical doctor, and I'm currently involved in research concerning telemedicine and Parkinson's disease. And I wanted to ask you, excuse me?
I laughed.
Yes, it's a small research group in the Clinical Hospital Center in Rijeka. And I designed the questionnaire, and we are currently waiting for the approval of the ethical committee so we can pursue the research onwards. I wanted to ask you, considering how well evolved this is in your country, how well do you think it will be implemented later on once the pandemic is hopefully over?
I was very amazed that the people started to use it during the COVID time, the first lockdown, but all those who experienced the advantages did not want to lose these advantages, and they still come via telemedicine control. Some of them came once in between, so let's say once a year, and the other 3 or 4 visits are telemedicine. So I think this is very easy to implement. It's more the doctors who have to go over this step to implement it in their systems. I know from Latido, the software we are using, that they had 6,000 calls during these 3 months of lockdown. And this is a lot because it's a small company, and they do not do thousands of offices. They have, I think, 500, 600 members or something like that in that dimension. So this was a lot, and this is still increasing, and they are working very hard on making the system better and faster and easier for the patients. to access, and changed a lot already, and it's now very easy. We don't have any problems technically, which was there in the beginning. That's working quite well. The acceptance is really good. What we do not do is first visits. I don't like to do first visits, because the first time I want to have the pheromones with the patient and touch the patient and talk to them. But sometimes it's not possible. I saw a patient now, she's German, but she's living in southern part of France and cannot travel now. And she was somehow disappointed that her German doctors didn't get in contact with her. And via the webcast, she got access to me. So we had a long chat together, about an hour, about her problems. She was so relieved, because she's sitting there in a very beautiful area of southern France, but there's nobody. I checked it then on the movement disorders homepage, who is in the area, and it's only two doctors, and they're about 200 kilometers away. So this is really something which can help us a lot in the near future.
Amazing. Thank you very much for the lecture once again, and for the answer also.
Anytime, and Lamia has my my email address, which is very easy, dieter@volc.at, and if you have some questions, just contact me directly. Okay,
thank you very much.
Anytime, and good luck for the project. I find this very, very good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question. Thank you, Anna, for your question. Mirna, yes?
You said that Parkinson, it's not a child disease, but I'm curious, how old is your youngest patient? Do you know, maybe?
My youngest patient was 18 with the onset, and I got to know her with 27, because all her doctors refused her to have a baby. And so he switched doctors until she found me, and then she became pregnant. It was not my fault, and got her baby, and it was no problem. That was the youngest one. The youngest person I know about was an 8-year-old child, and she had, but I don't know, remember what it was. She had a medication and ate some special French cheese with some fungus on it, which made a chemical reaction, and then she got the toxic Parkinson's disease. Most of those people who get Parkinson's disease that early have a toxic Parkinson's disease. There are many causes of Parkinson's, but in this case, mostly toxic.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You don't need to raise hand. You can also just ask. I noticed that you mentioned quite a lot of ladies as a patient, but in a disease there is no, we can say it's 50-50 female, male?
Officially, it's 1.1 to 1 for the male, so there are more male. But we're talking about people in the mid of 60s and older. So some of the guys already deceased. So in numbers, there are more ladies, but not from the distribution between the genders.
Okay, I understand. Interesting.
Are there any symptoms? Yeah, I would have a question maybe what I forgot to ask you. Are there symptoms that are more pronounced by women or more pronounced by men, or is it more or less gender untypical?
It's gender untypical. I would say it is 6,500,000 Parkinson's diseases in the world. Everybody is different. Years ago, I tried to, with the first computers, I tried to have, let's say, 5 standard programs where I just put a button and the typical prescriptions come out. I left that after a few weeks because it was completely senseless. Every patient, despite we have only 5 groups of medication, it is not possible to make a scheme. Everybody has another type of prescription. So I see it very individually.
Thank you.
I would like to ask, I saw one of your specializations on the website of the clinic Confraternität is also memory problems. So is this just as a symptom of Parkinson or Alzheimer, or is this just a separate category where also telemedicine can somehow help?
It will. I personally do Parkinson's disease almost exclusively, but I'm together, as you can see on the homepage, that I'm together with, again, a lady Dr. Caroline Thun-Hohenstein, and she also has an education as a neuropsychologist, and she is doing Alzheimer's disease and all those dementia things, also on a big scale. In the dementia, you can say you have about 70% of Alzheimer's disease, 25% of Lewy body disease, which is Alzheimer's together with Parkinson's, or Parkinson's with Alzheimer's, and then you have the rest of 5% of the different other pathologies for dementia. That's rather the exotic things, like frontotemporal dementia and things. So mainly it's Alzheimer's disease together with the Alzheimer variant of the old people. Yes, but we do a lot of testing, and with Encephalog there's also one string of investigations which you can do with the smartphone as well.
What I would also like to know, maybe just shortly, what are the, let's say, first symptoms for Parkinson or Alzheimer?
For Parkinson's disease, there are preclinical symptoms which can occur years before. This is especially a different smell sense. Normally you do not recognize it because it's a mix-up of different smells. So let's say something is peppermint and you say this is a tree in the wood. There are other things like, what is it? You smell cocoa when it is honey. So it's a mix-up, but you smell something. And if you see, let's say, the oregano is such a common and known smell. If you see the plant, or if you see the powder, and it has oregano written on it, you smell it as oregano. If you give them oregano to smell, they smell different things and they cannot say out of the blue what it is. So this is one of the main things occurring 5 to 10 years earlier. The second one is REM sleep behavior disorder. This means in REM sleep, when you are dreaming, you are completely relaxed and you are not able to move. And in REM sleep behavior disorder, you are acting out the dreams, you're fighting, you're talking, you're shouting, laughing, whatever. This is also something which happens years before. And the first symptom normally which is noticed is that the arm swing of one side is less or missing. There was a discussion going on since some years, and it broke out last week again that Putin is going to have Parkinson's disease because his right arm is not swinging. But in the Parkinson doctors community, we think that he was trained as an agent, and these guys always have their hand ready to pick up the gun, and therefore he's walking that way. I don't think he has Parkinson's disease. He has no other signs. And then you start with slow movements and the use of one hand. Parkinson starts on one side. One hand is weaker than the other one. Then over some weeks or months, it becomes clear what's the matter.
Okay, this with smell mix-up, it's interesting because it's not like corona. Corona symptoms include that you don't smell anything, right?
Yes, don't smell anything, and it comes all of a sudden, comes out of the blue within a day. And fortunately, most of the people lose the loss of the smell sense again, and it turns out after half a year that they become normal again. But still, one of our big fears is that Parkinson's disease might be diagnosed more often in the next years, because the last big pandemic, which was very similar, this was the outbreak 1920, exactly 100 years ago, we had a lot of Parkinson problems afterwards.
So the pandemic could be one of the, let's say, somehow cause such a problems, because you said there are very different ways that lead to this disease.
Yeah, meanwhile, 3 different complexes of neurological complications are already known and set up and fixed, and in neurology, the one is polyneuropathy, a kind of peripheral paralysis of the legs, where they lose the ability to walk or get very weak. Another one is the smell sense thing, which has something to do with the brainstem. And then there's vascular things with the blood vessels, because it makes an inflammation of the very tiny, small blood vessels in the brain. And after that, you get a kind of stroke-like syndromes. So this is already known, and many people have that. About 60% of the COVID patients, the severe COVID patients being in the hospital, have neurological symptoms.
And what would you say, what is the role of genetics in having such a disease?
In Parkinson's disease, it's about 20%, and it affects mostly people, or let's put it the other way around, the people who have a family form of Parkinson's disease, a genetic form. There are 21 different genes known by now. Start very early, in their 40s, in their 50s. And the normal Parkinson patients starting with in the middle of their 60s do not have very often genetic Parkinson's disease. And there was a time when I had more couples having Parkinson's disease than direct descendants. And hopefully the couples were not really related to each other. So it's a lot of environment. It's a lot of environment.
Yes, like you mentioned, the lady from France, or eating something.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Hi, yes, I would have a question going back to what you were just saying around the more onset of Parkinson's or more cases after the great pandemic. Do you see what would be the reasons, what would be the underlying causes for that? It is just the pandemic? Is it more stress that people are exposed to? What would be the reasons?
What could be the reason why neurological symptoms after the pandemic? There is a receptor. Are you familiar a little bit with medical parameters? No, let me put it that way. There's a receptor which is called the ACE receptor, ACE. And the ACE receptor is mostly in the lungs and has something to do with blood pressure. Therefore, you give ACE inhibitors as a very common drug against high blood pressure. And there's also an ACE2 receptor. The other one would be the ACE1. And the ACE2 receptor is in the lungs, in the peripheral nervous system, and in the brain. And you know all those pictures of this virus, very beautiful with these spikes. And these spikes dock on cells, on lung cells, vessel cells, and brain cells via an ACE2 receptor. And then the reproduction of the virus goes on. So this is the reason why it affects the blood vessels, the brain, and the lung mostly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I would like to thank you, Dr. Volc, for your lecture today. It was very interesting to hear what you're doing on a daily basis and how technology can help improve the health of the patients. It's really remarkable.
Thank you, Daria, for having me, for inviting me and being my host. I enjoyed it very much, and perhaps sometimes again, it was, I think, the third time I was talking to your club. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lamia. Bye-bye. I leave you.
Thank you, Dieter, for accepting our invitation and joining us.
Anytime. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone joining us tonight. We'll see you next time on the next lecture. Bye-bye, and have a nice evening.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.